Good evening. I'm Mario Antonio Martinez. I have a speech presentation. As my audience after this speech, I'm going to urge everyone to be able to continue to preserve our environment and reduce our dependency on fossil fuel sources and productions. It is a must that we attempt to do everything that continues to halt its production and limits our ability to find other sustainable sources that can ensure we have a sustainable climate. Though that by doing so, we must understand why we have conservation and moratoriums and moreover laws that try to regulate what effects can come and what problems are associated with our uses of such fossil fuel resources. I would mainly include much of the industrial uses and the productions of oil and of natural gases has received a lot of attention since it was made clear through early research that the effects on our climate would be sustained. Though that many of them were directly associated to the production of the combustible of petroleum products. I think that this has become a exploratory venue of practice. It has reached as remote places as the Arctic to far places where inaccessibility due to the regional areas are composed of. And when some of these reserves are underneath the ocean, in order to locate them, seismic testing must be done. This in part created an interest because mammals were turning up dead on shores in such massive quantities out of so many species that it drew a lot of attention and a lot of concern, as much from areas of the National Resources Defense Council to the effects of whales being unable to communicate, species, intolerably, become disoriented, many other things. Although that inevitable to our world atmosphere, pollution has contributed to the vastest amount of damage, which we can attribute to one component being altered. Given that these two things coincide from different areas, we could concentrate now more on what we can do to intervene, such as to petition, to follow, and maybe in depth understand now how come the Clean Air Act, such as in 1967, were enacted, and what moratoriums are guaranteed to do to preserve the habitats of such species. If we continue the continuation of the practice of oil drilling, we can expect that we are going to inevitably wind up with it as a source that's entered into our atmosphere, and pollution from the energy of it is going to cause many people to try and avert it. So I say, what's the use for it if we can't be responsible about it? There are many trident views over the exploration. Some of it has been presented in this context. There is enough oil already that has come from these wells or these reservoirs, so that we do not increase by burning them as energy combustibles the overall degree of the planet into a hazardous 2+ degrees Celsius. in urging for you to take action, I would say that we have ethical responsibilities to do so, as gas and oil companies observe the bans that remain in effect and want to continue to go out and explore and drill and get more oil and use it in order to boost economies. And they're trying to downplay on policies, and I think that this is just unacceptable as it were. Pumping and drilling, transport, everything that is associated with offshore drilling, especially in the Arctic, debates whether the practices are safe, and geography matters. Geography absolutely matters, where emissions for where interest, for this oil rush from countries that want to go out into the Arctic, and the only reason that they want to do their oil expeditioning is because there has been dramatic sea ice loss out in the Arctic, out in places where they think that it's more accessible for them to explore for oil and exploit the fact that it's going to cause planetary damage. One of the main problems with this is that there are many inexperienced companies from many countries that are developing that want to take advantage of using oil to boost their economies. While we're not even fitting into the equation the accidental happenstance, Dr. Simon Boxall of Southampton University has said that drilling on the Arctic is an inevitable risk. It's a haphazard because there are powerful storms, vessels in shipping and in storage, and in all forms of the platforms could lead to a catastrophic event for which nobody is yet prepared to be able to do any cleanup effort. It is just too remote, and it is nature's refrigerator. Of all places, if bacteria could eat up oil in the ocean, bacteria cannot do this over the ice. While we think that the method for a safer planet is going to be to guarantee that we try to abide law, to try and figure how best leased areas throughout the world should not fall into the hands of these inexperienced companies, we need to keep in mind that most of these companies, while they explore and do obtain some oil, that some of them only get a fraction, a quarter of the oil that they get out, and that most of them have no real experience to deal with this problem. I'd lastly say that I'd like to cover my main points. From the dependency of fuel, to halting drilling, to intervention, to further action, to the environment versus the science, and very much real to the hazard of that drilling. We must continue to take steps to ensure that we have a safer planet, and at the same token, arrive at exposure of less emissions. I believe that in doing this, we will exponentially decrease the amount of pollution that is in the air while we conserve our habitats. And we will also end environmental devastation, especially in glacial regions and in Arctic regions, which is moreover more important to preserving the climate. As I said, there are many views, and many of them indicating that they warrant that the changes that we will be trying to avoid require much more attention. I'd like to point this out to you. Moises Neal, an oil journalist, said that the cost and the damage, which we could question, is critical to the environment, technology, political, industrial development, climate change, and pollution, and the disturbances which are caused by this practice. Now, I should ask you, if all these questions are unanswered, should we continue extracting? Thank you for being my audience today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.